I recently made a purchase online and I bought a book and it came in the mail, but it was a little bit damaged on the spine, so I took it back to the store, was going to return it and just exchange it, and told myself when I went in that I was not going to buy anything else. I absolutely failed at that. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sam and we're doing a book haul today. I have a lot of books in front of me. I recently had a birthday and so I got some books for that. I also bought some books from Book Outlet, which y'all know Book Outlets looks inexpensive until you have 40 books in your cart. And I also went to Barnes & Noble, which I probably should not have done, but it's fine. It's okay. It gave me a book haul, it's got a video that we're gonna go through, and honestly, I'm so excited about so many of these books, so let's get into it. Before we get into the video, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon to notify you when I post. I post on Sundays and Thursdays, and we have over 45 books to talk about today, so let's go. So these books are going to be in no particular order. I stacked them up for my thumbnail photo, and I'm just going to continuously grab them off this stack. So we'll just start at the left and work our way over. I am going to try to give a synopsis of each one, but we do have a lot to get through, so I might go a little bit quickly, but I'll highlight the ones that I'm the most excited about a little bit more. So the first book on this stack is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This was my TBR treat pick for April, and this basically follows our main character, Agnieszka, and she lives in this little village where they are like taken care of by the dragon, who's like a wizard, lives in a tower, and every 10 years he comes and takes a village girl to come like serve him for 10 years kind of thing. And there's one girl in her village that everybody knows he's going to take this next time, but things change a little bit once he gets there and he ends up taking Agnieszka. And I really liked this book. I have already read it because it is almost May, so I did read this in April and it was so good. I will talk about it in my April wrap-up, but I heard very mixed reviews about this thing and I was very nervous that I wasn't going to like it, but I did love it. Next book is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is a grumpy sunshine tropey rom-com type of thing. We have our main character, Olive, and she is a third-year PhD student, and she has this kind of hypothesis that like love doesn't exist and she doesn't want to date, but she did date this guy previously and they broke up. It was mutual, it was fine, but her best friend likes this guy but will not go out with him because he's Olive's ex. So Olive ends up grabbing a random guy to kiss to convince her friend that she's moved on, and that guy happens to be the very grumpy professor at her school whose name is Adam. So then they decide to fake date for a while and things spiral from there. It's really cute. I have also already read this one in April and I can't wait to talk about it in my wrap up. Next book is Salvage. This is by Alexandra Duncan, and I actually already owned this book in paperback, but I found it at a thrift store in hardback, and y'all know how much I like hardbacks, and it was so cheap. So I went ahead and picked it up because I did really like this book. This is a young adult sci-fi that follows Peristrata Ava, and she is living in a future society where most of humanity has moved to like spaceships, almost like WALL-E, but there are still people on Earth, but Earth is a lot less appealing. And Peristrata Ava is the daughter of one of the captains of one of these big ships, and it's basically like a little kingdom, and she is supposed to marry the son of one of the captains of a different ship, but a mistake is made. It gets her in a lot of trouble. She ends up on Earth kind of running for her life, and a lot of things happen from there. This book was really, really good. I read this a while ago. It won some award in South Carolina right before I started teaching, so that's why I read it, but highly recommend this one. Okay, in a somewhat similar route, I also already owned these books, but I wanted them in hardback, so I found them at the thrift store, and they were in such good condition. They were $3 each, so I bought them. So I bought the entire Fallen series by Lauren Kate. This is a young adult paranormal romance. It follows our main character, Luce, and she has gotten into some trouble and she is being sent to a alternative boarding school for troubled kids. And while she's there, she meets Daniel, who very much wants nothing to do with her, but there's something about him that's drawing her to him. Absolutely love this series. This is like peak 2012 paranormal romance. Like if you like things like Unearthly and Twilight and all of that, like this is right in that genre. I know a lot of people don't like these books and I don't really know why, but you do you, boo. So these books I did talk about a little bit in one of my reading vlogs when I did go to all of those thrift stores. I also went to Second and Charles and found a set of books that were literally my dream come true. And I spent a lot of money on them, and I am almost embarrassed to admit how much money I spent on them. But I do think that it was worth it. I have talked about them a little bit, but I thought I would share since we're doing the whole big book haul. I was able to buy the entire original set of ACOTAR in the original covers, and it is the greatest purchase I have ever made for myself. I owned them in paperback in the original covers, and I never bought them in hardback because even though it's one of my favorite series, I didn't want the new covers. I just really wanted the old covers, but I didn't think I'd ever be able to get them, so I was just sticking to my paperbacks. But I found them. I actually already owned the third one that I was able to get before, like right before the cover switch happened. I found it at an outlet bookstore, but I was never able to get the other ones, and I kind of accepted it. But I found them, and honestly, I really feel like for what they are, the price was not that bad. I mean, it's definitely more than I would ever spend on a normal book, but it wasn't like I didn't spend thousands of dollars or anything. Like in the span of things, I think I got a pretty good deal on these, but I'm so excited about these books. I'm actually doing a reread of them all right now and I'm loving it. Okay, so the next 12 books are all one series, so I'm gonna kind of talk about the series and then I will hold up each book and we'll go from there. So for my birthday, the main thing that my mom wanted to get me were books, and I told her that I wanted another series similar to an Outlander feel, even if it wasn't, like, I feel like you can't really get another Outlander, that's just not really possible, but I did want another longer series, more historical fiction wasn't a requirement, but it was a bonus. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, but I really liked Outlander. I really liked the historical aspects of it, and I just wanted another long drama that was kind of like Downton Abbey but in book form. So I think she managed to do it. So my mom bought me the entire series of Poldark. So the first book is Ross Poldark, and basically this follows a man from Cornwall, I think, and he is coming back to Cornwall after the Revolutionary War, and that is actually all I know. I know it's a TV show. I haven't seen it, but I've heard that it's really good. I know that there's some romance in it. I know that it's like a multi-generational thing. So I'm seeing like similar vibes to Outlander. I don't know if it's really all that similar, but I'm getting kind of a similar vibe. So I am really excited to give it a shot, but I'll just kind of roll through all the books. I am not positive if they are in order in this stack. I know the first 6 are, but after that, I'm not really sure if it was backwards or not when I took it out of the box. So we'll just, it is what it is. So the first book is Ross Poldark, and then we have Demelza, Jeremy Poldark, Warlegan, The Black Moon, The Four Swans, Bella Poldark, The Twisted Sword, The Loving Cup, The Miller's Dance, The Stranger from the Sea, and The Angry Tide. So those are all the books. I am pretty sure the series is finished. I didn't do a lot of research into it yet, but I'm pretty sure the series is finished. I know it's kind of dramatic, and that's kind of what I wanted. I also know it's a little bit older than Outlander, so I think this series was started in like 1950 something. So that makes me a little bit nervous because I don't tend to like super old literature. Not that that's super old, but you know what I mean. But we're gonna see how it goes. I have high hopes. I've got to at least give it a shot. I own all 12 books. I have to at least try them. Next up, we have Legendborn. This is by Tracy Dion, and it is a young adult urban fantasy that follows our main character Bree, and she is participating in a residential program for high schoolers at UNC Chapel Hill. So she is there, and then there's like a secret society, and there's a demon and some Arthurian thing. Someone calls himself Merlin. And that's really all I know, but the lady at the bookstore that I bought this from raved so much about this book. She said that it was like the best book that she had ever read and that I was going to love it. So I am so excited to read this one. I've heard really good things about it, and it is right up my alley. I'm getting very much like Ninth House vibes, but in a young adult form, and I really liked Ninth House, so I'm really excited about this. Next up, we have The Inheritance Games. This is by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and it is a young adult kind of like thriller mystery type of thing. We have our main character, Avery, and she somehow ended up inheriting everything from a billionaire, and the only catch was that she had to move into his house, which is Hawthorne House, and it's like a big riddle, and there's also the problem of his 4 grandsons that he just disinherited are still there, and so there's like this big riddle thing, secret thing happening with the 5 of them, and that's really all I know, and that's really all I want to know, honestly. I am so excited about this book. I have been waiting to read this book for a long time. I know that there's a 3rd one, and I don't think it's out yet. So I was kind of waiting until all of them were out because I knew I was going to want to read them pretty quickly, but I'm getting kind of like 39 Clues vibes, but more young adult. But I've also seen it compared to Truly Devious, and I didn't like Truly Devious, so that makes me a little bit nervous. But I have really high hopes for this one. Next up, we have The Book of Cold Cases. This is by Simone St. James, and it follows some woman who is interviewing another woman who was accused of murdering? Cold case slayings. 2 cold case slayings. Yeah, that's really all I know, to be honest. The Inheritance Games feels more like mystery riddle-y. This feels more thrillery, and I have not been in the mood for thrillers at all recently, but this is on my May TBR, so I do need to read it now, so we're gonna give it a shot. I'm hoping I like it, but I kind of want to go in blind because I don't want to have to think too hard about it, or I'm probably not going to pick it up. Next book is House of Sky and Breath. This is by Sarah J. Maas, and it is the 2nd book in her Crescent City series, which is an adult urban fantasy that follows Bryce, and after the death of her best friend by a demon, she ends up in the investigation alongside Hunt Athalar, who is a fallen angel, and they are trying to figure out what happened and save the world, basically, and nothing really changes in book 2, or just kind of following right after book 1. I have already read this book, and I absolutely adored it. The ending was both incredible and just absolutely, I screamed like a lot, like out loud in public. And I'm not ashamed of that at all, honestly, but highly recommend this series. It is like an adult urban fantasy, but high fantasy at the same time. Like, it's set in a city, but a high fantasy city, so it's like an urban setting, but also high fantasy. Is really good. Next up, we have Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer, and as I picked this book up, I just noticed that it has this huge tear down the spine, and now I'm really upset. That is so depressing. I'm usually not one of those people that gets overly upset if a book gets damaged, unless it's the spine, because the spine is what you see on my shelf, but I think it's subtle enough that it's gonna be okay. I'm not gonna, like, this is from Book Outlet, so I'm not gonna bother to like try and do anything with that, but it's fine. It's gonna be okay. I'm not gonna let it bother me. I actually have no idea what this book is about. I know it's a fantasy. I picked it up because it's by Bridget Kemmerer. I've heard good things about it, but I also read her other series, A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and I really liked that. So hopefully this has similar vibes and it's similar enough that I still like it. I heard that, I know that there's a romance. I think it might even be a best friend romance, maybe? Which would be really exciting because I do really love best friend romances. So we'll see how this one goes. I also know that there's a book 2, and I think it's coming out this year. Next up, I have A Forgery of Roses. This is by Jessica S. Olsen, and I also don't know what this is about. I picked this up because it had a pretty cover, and I want to read more young adult fantasy again. I do kind of miss it a little. I kind of got off of the YA fantasy for a while, and was reading a lot of adult things, and now I'm kind of ready to read some more young adult fantasy again. So I picked this up on a whim the other day and we're gonna give it a shot. Next up I have The Beautiful and The Damned. These are the first 2 books in a series by Renee Ahdieh. I think there's more than 2, don't quote me on that. It might be a duology, but I'm pretty sure it's not. But this basically is set in New Orleans in like 1872, I think. Yes. And basically we've got like a little bit of fantasy going on here, a little bit of murder, a little bit of historical fiction, fantasy murder kind of stuff. I don't know a ton about it, but a TikToker that I trust for opinions has recommended it a couple of times, so I'm gonna give it a try. I haven't really read anything like this, but I am kind of getting some similarities to Stalking Jack the Ripper, and I don't really know why, because they're not even remotely close to the same thing. Like, they're not set in the same place, but they are both kind of like a historical fiction thriller, which is kind of what I'm getting here, but I think this one has a little bit more fantasy, so we'll see how it goes. Next up we have House of Hollow. This is by Crystal Sutherland, and it follows 3, they started off as children, they disappeared, and then they came back, and suddenly a lot of things about them have changed, and it's been a while since they came back. They have no memory of where they were, but then one of them goes missing again, and it seems like this world that sent them back is now calling them to return. So definitely getting some fantasy vibes in here, some mystery vibes, maybe some fairy type of stuff. I'm not really sure, but it was described as darkly seductive and twisty modern day fairy tale. So super interested in this one. I hope I can get to this one really soon. It's not very long and it's young adult, so I'm really excited to add some more young adult fantasy to my shelf again. Next up we have Rapsodic. This is by Laura Thalassa, and it follows a couple of things. I don't know a ton about it. I know that there's a siren, I know that there's someone called the Bargainer, and I know that there's like fae involved. I know it's very dark, I know it's very adult, I know it's kind of spicy. That's all I know, and honestly that was enough for me to pick it up. So I have heard incredible things about this book from a friend of mine who has already read it, and we have basically the exact same taste in books, so I'm really excited to get started on this one. This one is also on my April TBR, or my May TBR, so this one will be coming up very soon. Next up we have Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is middle grade-ish, young adult-ish. I've seen it marketed as both, honestly, so I'm not really positive. I get more middle grade vibes from it, but our main character is 16, so somewhere in between the middle grade, young adult era. So I think reading the cover of it is so much more interesting than anything I could tell you, because I think the blurb is so well done, so I'm gonna read it to you. All her life, Olivia Pryor has wondered who she truly is and where she belongs. Her only clue is a slim, battered journal, her mother's journal, full of entries that seem to show that she was unraveling, and drawings that look like blots of ink, until Olivia notices a hand, a door, a bloom, and a skull. Then a letter beckons Olivia home to Gallant, the one place her mother's journal warns her never to go. Olivia goes anyway, of course she does. What she finds is her last living relative and her family's manor. A manor with a ballroom and a sitting room and a study and a sprawling, vibrant garden, and the crumbling ruin of a garden wall with an iron door, a door she must never open. But no one at Gallant sent Olivia that letter, and no one will tell her what haunts her cousin's dreams, what happened to her mother, or what lies on the other side of the wall. Did the shadows call Olivia home, and what will they ask of her in return? I am so excited to read this book. I have never had a blurb draw me in so quickly as this book. I find a lot of blurbs kind of turn me off of books, so a lot of times I'll either avoid reading them or I'll just listen to what other people say about the book, which is why I end up reading so many popular books. And I know this one is super popular right now, but I'm really excited about this, and I found it all on my own. I didn't even know it, and I've never even read anything by V.E. Schwab, so super excited about this one. Next up we have Bully by Penelope Douglas. This book follows our main character. She's a teenage girl. She has a bully, obviously, but he used to be her best friend until something changed and he became this relentless, awful bully, and she left for a year just to avoid him, but now she's back and she's decided not to let him bully her anymore. She's going to fight back. I know that this is a romance, and I am positive that it's pretty smutty, probably, and probably pretty dark, and that's all I know. So I've never read a bully romance before other than like The Cruel Prince. Like, let's be honest, that's exactly what that is. But I've never read like a contemporary one. So I'm nervous, but also kind of excited. I like the best friends aspect, like they used to be best friends. So we'll see. I do find that in things like this, like in The Cruel Prince, I kind of have trouble forgiving the guy if he's that bad. So we'll see how this one goes. Next up, we have The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This follows our main character, Hannah, and she is in college. She has a crush, but in order to get his attention, she decides to fake date a boy named Garrett who wants to play professional hockey after he graduates, but his GPA is plummeting, so she decides to tutor him in exchange for a fake date to get her crush's attention. So fake dating turns into more, obviously. So that's where we're going here. I've been reading a lot of fake dating recently, and I really, really enjoy it. So I expect this one will be good. I know that this is very new adult, very spicy, or at least probably fairly spicy, and it's set in college. So I'm interested. Next up, we have Beach Read. This is by Emily Henry, and it follows two writers, Augustus and January. And Augustus writes literary fiction, and January writes romance, and they are complete opposites, but they are both staying in beach houses right next to each other, and they both have writer's block. So they end up meeting and talking, and they decide that to cure their writer's block, they are going to basically be each other. They are going to write what each other normally writes that they are not comfortable in at all, and try and break their writer's block that way. And obviously things kind of progress from there romantically, and yeah, I really like Emily Henry's writing, so I'm really, really excited about this book. I've just been in such a rom-com mood recently that I just want to read them all, so I bought this one so that I can have another one to read. Next up, we have Shipped. This is by Angie Hockman, and it follows two co-workers who have actually never met, but they email a lot and they hate each other, but they end up being... they're up for the same promotion, they have to go on a cruise together for the company, and they both have to write up a proposal for this promotion. So we've got workplace, enemies to lovers, very much getting like The Honeymooners mixed with The Hating Game, and I really liked both of those books, so this one's pretty promising. Next up, we have The Worst Best Man. This is by Mia Sosa, and it follows our main character, Carolina, and Max. So Carolina is a wedding planner, and she had a failed wedding of her own, and now she is planning another wedding, but she has to work with the best man from her failed wedding, who also happens to be the brother of the groom that she didn't marry. So we've got kind of a little bit of like workplace type of stuff, but mostly like enemies to lovers. It says on the back of the book that Max refuses to play runner-up to his brother ever again, so definitely feelings like there's some unrequited love happening here. And I'm really excited about it because that's right up my alley. Next up, we have Fix Her Up. This is by Tessa Bailey, and it follows our main character, Georgette, and she comes from a family of home renovators, and she decided to take a different career path and plan children's birthday parties, but it means that nobody really takes her seriously. She doesn't really date a lot, and her family thinks she's kind of losing her mind. So she ends up deciding to fake date her brother's best friend, Travis Ford, who is a former baseball player who was injured and he can't play anymore, and he gets made fun of a lot for that, and it bothers him. So they decide to fake date to both shock her family and hopefully land him a new job. This is also on my May TBR because I'm that excited about it. Brother's best friend is like my thing. I can't wait. Next up, we have It Happened One Summer, also by Tessa Bailey, and this follows our main character, Piper. And Piper is from, I think, LA, and she is kind of like a wild child. Paparazzi are following her everywhere until one night an out-of-control party has her stepfather saying that enough is enough, and he sends her to Westport, Washington, where she is supposed to run like the family bar, and she ends up meeting Brendan, and he is a fisherman. Gruff, we're getting like Grumpy Sunshine vibes here, and he doesn't think she can last a day in this small town, but she tries to prove him wrong from there, I guess. We've got Grumpy Sunshine romance, which is one of my favorites. This is also on my May TBR because, again, I'm trying to read all of the rom-coms that I can because I just love them so much right now. And on very, very similar vibes, I also have Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey, which is the second book in that series, but it follows a completely different character. This book follows Piper's sister, Hannah, and she has a best friend named Fox, and he is supposed to be like a total player, but she's staying with him. She has a crush on another guy. He's supposed to be helping her get that guy, but he likes her, so he is trying to sabotage that without letting her know that. But she doesn't want to just be like another notch on his bedpost. So we're getting another best friends to lovers kind of vibe here, which I really like, and close proximity because they're living together right now. Super excited about this. So I want to read the first one so that I can then read this one, hopefully sometime in the next month or so. Next up, we have Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, and this follows our main character, Amelia, and she and her twin sister are witches, and they live in the human world, and they're supposed to be unnoticed until one night her sister is murdered, and she is absolutely devastated. She is determined to find out who killed her sister, and she ends up working with Wrath, who is one of the princes of hell and is supposed to very much, she's not supposed to be doing this. So that's all I know. I just read the blurb like 5 minutes ago. I've been wanting to read this book for a while, even though I didn't know anything about it, because I've heard such good things about it, and it is on my May TBR, so super excited about that. And then on the exact same note, we have Kingdom of the Cursed, which is the second book in that series, and I know that the third one comes out this year, so I'm really, really excited to get to all three. This one is also on my main TBR because I just feel like I'm gonna like the first one so much I'm gonna want to read the second one. Next up, we have The Princess Will Save You. This is by Sarah Henning, and it is supposed to be kind of like The Princess Bride, but like flipped. So we have our main character, Amarandi, and she is a princess who is given two choices. She has to either marry this other prince that she doesn't want to marry, or basically die. And in order to kind of motivate her, her beloved, the stable boy Luca, is kidnapped. But she is not just gonna let that happen, so she goes off to save Luca and change their lives. I also have the second book, The Queen Will Betray You. I don't know anything about this one because I haven't read the first one yet, but really excited to read both of these. I do really like The Princess Bride, and I kind of like the flip here where it's the girl saving the guy for once. I think that's kind of refreshing. All right, last book. Last up, we have The Spanish Love Deception. This is by Elena Armas, and it follows our main character, Catalina, and she needs a date for her sister's wedding, but she doesn't have one. She's been telling her family about this American boyfriend that she doesn't have, so she ends up inviting her coworker that she doesn't get along with to fake date her for this trip to Spain and for her sister's wedding. Things spiral from there, so we're getting very much like enemies to lovers, workplace, fake dating, vacation, all of the rom-com vibes that I like, all wrapped up into one book. So I'm definitely reading this book in May as well, so if you're really interested to see what I think about this book, it will not be long. Alright, those are 47 books that I have bought recently, which is a lot of books, and I had absolutely no business buying that many books in essentially 1 month. But it's good, it's cool, it's fine. I'm very much losing my voice, so I'm gonna end the video here, but if you are interested in seeing any more videos from me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!